All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we will cross this time-space continuum to a place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, and the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and throughout the province of Ontario on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, based right here in St. Catharines, Ontario. And you can listen to us being streamed by Classic 1220 at classic1220.ca. Tonight we're going to be speaking about one of my favorite subjects, and that's dreaming. I have always been amazed by dreams. What are they? What role do they play? Now, here's a question that I was asked many years ago. When we are awake, are we really dreaming? And when we go to sleep and what we perceive to be a dream, is that reality? Kind of shook my head at that one and said, my gosh, I never thought of that. Well, joining me tonight to try and help me understand dreams better is Dr. Steve Aizenstat. And first of all, Steve, welcome back to the X Zone. Great having you with us.
Oh, it's great to be back with you. Yes, thank you.
Steve, how did you get involved in dreams?
Oh my! It started early on when I was a child, and something was happening that was fascinating. And just like in the world of today, you know, people really don't have a full understanding. And now that I've worked with so many parents with their children, you know, what people are aware of is that when a child wakes up and it's a frightening dream or a scary dream, you know, the parent will come in quickly and say, hey, it's only a dream. It's only a dream. And, you know, of course, that dismisses. And I don't blame parents because we care about our kids.
Sure.
And, you know, we're worried that something difficult's going on. So if I just turn on the light or bring a glass of milk or water, you know, it'll go away. But I was fascinated and I got curious and time went on. And I think actually there's nothing in school then, hardly anything in school today, that really talked about dream or supported people in hearing dreams, particularly kids.
Right.
And I want to talk about a little bit later in our conversation. Dreams are the way into that liminal zone, right? That place between the two qualities of consciousness that you open your show with. They really do open that portal into that quality of being and that intelligence. I think what happened for me actually is that I was then 12 years old, and I lived in Los Angeles, and if you go up and over the foothills, you land at the beach, you know, and it was a place called Zuma Beach, still there, and it's big beach with lifeguard stands and food signs every place, and families would, I mean, just lots of people, you know, big parking lots, the whole thing. And I was there with my parents, which was great. And then something happened. I one day noticed on the far left-hand side, there was a jetty, a rock jetty that went out into the sea, and then low tide happened. So the tide receded, the ocean receded, and I could walk around the jetty. And of course, my parents always would say, Steve, just stay in sight, in eyesight. This is a big ocean, and that's known actually for some of the waves action there. So just stay, around in the proximity of where we are. But, I was naturally curious.
Of course.
I'm a bit rebellious, but it wasn't out of rebellion. It was mostly curiosity. I went around that jetty, that rock peninsula, and to the other side of the beach. And oh my goodness, I think this is the origin story, if you will. When I was there, the tide was out, and of course you're sitting on rock, right? The tide pools are magical with all the things that are swimming about underneath, and the kelp is different colors, and the sea anemone, and on it goes. And I'm sitting there just in reflection, just, really in awe, I would say, a bit of wonder, really in wonder. And I just felt the place alive, as if everything had a story to tell. And right at that moment, I heard a voice behind me. And the voice said, "Did you know that rocks can talk?" Did you know that? And I thought, well, wait a minute. I mean, I knew that. That's what I was experiencing. That's what happens at night when I'm in dream time. But I didn't know anybody else would know that or talk about that. I looked back, and maybe he was 6, 17, 18, with a surfboard under his arm.
Right.
And of course, when you're 12 and that man with a surfboard walks by, he's a god, right?
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah, truly. And I said, oh, well, yes, I did know, but I didn't know anybody else knew. Oh, yes. In the dream time, everything comes awake. I went, whoa, okay. That moment changed everything for me. That the world is alive, that dreams are originating not only in the psyche of people, from the dreaming psyche, but in the plants and the creatures and the stones and the buildings. It's different when you begin to appreciate dream time in that way. Well, let's finish that off in 10 seconds. The tide came back, right? And I almost missed that.
Oh, gosh.
So I got up and ran as fast as I could, found my parents, and they, of course, said, where have you been? I said, oh, and just walking about. What are you going to say, right? I've been to the other side where dreams are and the things are alive. No, I didn't say that. But it made a deep impression, and that story goes on. If we get into, I was blessed to be in Australia working with Aboriginal elders of the dream time and many, many different people in indigenous traditions, native cultures, where dreams are very, very much valued.
Steve, what is the physiological aspect of dreams? How are dreams formed? Yeah,
that is a good question, of course. And in the dream tending approach, it's kind of like almost a mantra that the body is always dreaming. The body is always dreaming. So something happens physiologically, and our body is picking something up and in some form or fashion sends a signal, and dreams will respond. And let me say that happens when people are dealing with physiological affliction, illness.
Yeah.
And that's a whole bunch of the work that I do, is working with people with a disease syndrome of one sort or the next, and dreams are so helpful there. And we can talk about that later on if you'd like.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that people get a lot out of that. And then, of course, when the dream state happens, we all dream. We dream necessarily. Everybody does. There's a time in sleep. It's called REM sleep, right, where the mind, the brain waves shift into a different quality, and dreams then come awake. We don't always remember them, and sometimes they're not in picture language, which we sometimes imagine dreams only to be, but they're in moods or in gestures or in sounds. I know that when people wake up and they just don't feel right, and they scan, right? They scan their life. There's nothing really hard that happened in my relationship or in my marriage or my partner, and there's nothing really at work or in my life with friends or peer groups going on. I don't know why I'm so troubled. And the classic saying, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. So sometimes what's happening, it's not about the external. It's about what's being stirred internally.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, the night life, the dream life, the interactions between figures and landscapes and so on, something goes on there that is troublesome, and then we wake up in a bad mood, so to speak. So I often experience dreams as that mood in part, and I have ways that people can work with the mood as if it were a dream, because in some ways it is, and that you can really hear the story that lives behind that mood. Very helpful, really informs and offers guidance in our life.
Steve, when people work night shift and then they go to day shift, are the dreams that one has during the day different from the dreams that one has at night?
Yeah. The reason I chuckled is my daughter was recently married, and she married an ER doctor.
Oh, boy.
And, oh, boy. Talk about hectic life, right?
Oh, my wife's a nurse, so I know that life very well.
Okay, you know that one. And it's night shifts,
Mm-hmm.
night shifts, night shifts, night shifts, night shifts. So that topic of conversation comes up often. I have two responses. One is the dreams. No, there's a lot of similarity. What happens though is that there's a lot of agitation that occurs because the sleep cycle is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's reported again and again and again that it does take it energetically. It takes a lot out of people when you stay on that night day shift switch. It does take energy from the body. The images come. The curious thing is that when you're at night and you're working and then you come back home and then you're sleeping when the sun is out, right? And
yes.
Activity in the world is very active. So you're kind of in lunar consciousness, which is the place of the dream time,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in the solar consciousness because that's the time of the daytime. Dreams happen. They have to. Dreams, it's a function of being alive. Because you can interrupt people's sleep by when that I described REM now
Yes.
is just off the shelf, right? You can just interrupt that. But if you don't have some of that REM sleep, that dream time, you really do have a really, really hard time. In fact, you go kind of crazy, and it's not healthy or helpful. And so the body's going to try to capture that, and you'll go into some kind of a, hallucinatory state of some sort
Right.
just to get that experience. That's one answer. The other is
All right, why don't we have the other answer on the other side of this very short commercial break I have to take right now, Steve?
Perfect.
Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Stephen, and I'm going to try and say the name right, Aizenstat.
Perfect.
Okay, there we go. And we're talking about dream tending this hour. His website is dreamtending.com. That's www.dreamtending.com. And he's the author of The Imagination Matrix, How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose. And it came out in October just this year, so congratulations, Steve. And
Thank
Steve
you.
and I will be back on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues, right here from our broadcast center in St. Catharines, our networks, and of course, your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming us at classic1220.ca. We'll both be back on the other side of this very short break, so whatever you do, don't go away.
When I wake up early in the morning, lift my head, I'm still yawning. When I'm in the middle of a dream, stay in bed, float upstream, please don't wake me, no, don't shake me, leave me where I am, I'm only sleeping.
And welcome back, everyone. We're talking about dreaming this hour here in the X Zone. My guest is Dr. Stephen Aizenstat, and his website is www.dreamtending.com. And if you'd like to get a copy of Dr. Eisenstat's book, it's entitled The Imagination Matrix, How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose, just go to Amazon or any other any other online store. I like Amazon. They're really good. They're really quick. And usually you get what you want. All right, Steve, we were talking about dreams, and I asked you about, do the dreams change or alter when you go from a night shift to a day shift and a day shift to a night shift? Now, you gave us one explanation, and you said, now, on the other hand...
On the other hand, right, the people will say often, I don't remember dreams. I don't remember my dreams. And there are specific skills that I offer that really help virtually everybody remember dreams. But there's not necessarily a distinction between daydreams and night dreams. And what do I mean by that? I mean that in the daytime, we often experience ourselves in a different quality of experience or consciousness, right? It's dream-like. In other words, we're very familiar with, our routines. We're very familiar with the expected, what we anticipate. But on occasion, all of us, right, we have that experience that's out of the ordinary.
Yep.
That one. And that is a dream-like experience. And the way that I work with that experience is very similar to how I work with a dream of the night, a nighttime dream. Because we differentiate between the two. And many cultures, particularly indigenous cultures or native cultures, do not necessarily differentiate between daytime, nighttime dreaming, right? So the skills that we will talk about and what I share in the other book that I've written is called Dream Tending. Dream Tending really goes through all the particular skills and many of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight. So that's another good resource to use, all on the website that you named. So that is the other hand, that sometimes dreaming is as much a part of our daytime experience as it is of our nighttime experience when we remember.
So when it comes to people who are daydreamers, can we call them waking dreams?
Yes, and one of my wonderful colleagues, lifelong friend, once upon a time wrote a book called Waking Dreams, actually, and that was the title. Her name is Mary Watkins. Yeah, they're waking dreams. And it's really extraordinary, I think, wonderful to experience, to really bring consciousness to those kinds of experiences and work with waking life situations as if they were, and as if they are, a dream. It opens curiosity, it opens imagination, it opens our sense of innovation, and without all of that, it really enhances quality of life, right? Because to the extent that we live in imagination and dream, really live in that place, is the extent that we really limit our anxiety and our isolation. And something else happens, right? We come awake to a different quality of life.
So if we're looking at dreams as a part of consciousness that we just haven't learned enough about, or even look at a dream as part of consciousness, if it is part of consciousness, can we then communicate with other people who are also in the dream state?
The answer is yes. And there is not a time that goes by, because I offer workshops in many places worldwide. But I always will get this question. It's like this, particularly between people that know each other,
right?
Have a sense of being present with one another in a partnership or in a marriage or in a peer relationship or a colleague. And they'll say, I'm in Los Angeles. And the curious thing happened, because a dream happened last night. And the person, they make the call because their partner is in New York, let's say, or in Ontario. And they say, hey, a funny thing happened last night. I had this really strange dream. It was so peculiar. I just got to share this with you. And the person says, that's really amazing, because I had a very, very similar dream. And it's like this kind of awe that happens. Yeah, we can communicate through that liminal space in the dream time. And think about that in the family, right? With children. people are communicating all the time. You cannot not communicate, and particularly in that quality of consciousness, there's a lot of conversation going on. So to bring that forward in a safe way, I don't want to romanticize or idealize this. I mean, some dreams are challenging, right?
Certainly.
Nightmarish, difficult. Yeah, we can talk about that as well. But what is true is that there's a lot happening between people, at that dimension of experience.
Since the advent of the Bluetooth, microwaves, and of course cell phones, has there been a study done to see if there's any effect that these electronic gimmicks affect our sleep patterns? And if they affect our sleep patterns, would they affect our dream patterns?
Yes and yes. They do affect our sleep patterns, for sure. And if we're on screen, particularly whatever it is, before we go to sleep, when just before eyes close and something else happens in that liminal space, it'll really disturb our experience of sleep. It'll prolong it. We'll get more and more agitated. And one of the very practical things to do if sleep is sometimes difficult for many people is to just not be on screen of any kind or on any device.
Right. At
least 20 minutes to 35 minutes, 40 minutes before head touches pillow, whatever that may be like. For sure that.
And I can concur with that 100% because when I get home at night from after doing the show here, I've been facing 4 computer screens, TV camera, studio lights, and when I get home, I like to sit in the dark for at least a half hour.
Oh, yes.
And I just kind of veg out. And when I go to bed, because I feel tired, I have a great night's sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my wife, God bless her, she likes to do a lot of Christmas shopping at this time of the year when she goes to bed. And I say, honey, you want to get a good night's sleep? You don't need to take any over-the-counter, Nidal or whatever. You just need to shut down. Put that phone down and give your mind and body a chance to veg. And she says, well, who's the nurse here, you or me? And I say, well, okay, hon. Like my dad said, there's 2 words that'll keep any marriage going for several years. And I said, what's that, Dad? He said, Jack Daniels. So there you go. A little kudo to my dad there.
There you go. I have to say, the new research is just coming out about those remedies to go to sleep. We have to be somewhat conscious and careful of now, like Benadryl or anything that has that in it.
Yeah.
Because it's showing up in the research that creates something of a dysfunction in the brain.
Really?
But sitting in the dark, are you kidding? I can't imagine anything more useful before sleep time comes, right? We're in liminal space then.
Yeah.
And in preparation. And the other part of that is also true in the morning, right? If I were to say, and I invite everybody that's listening, just take a guess. You can even write it down somewhere. What percentage of people, before they get out of bed, when eyes open, reach for the cell phone? The first thing we do is reach for that cell phone. We're looking for messages.
Yeah.
We're looking for affirmation. We're looking for something.
I must be the oddball in society because the first thing I do when I open my eyes is make my way to the kitchen where I grab a cup of coffee, and then I go sit back in the chair that I was sitting in 6 hours before vegging out.
There you go. Perfect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different way of living life to be. And that's the top place in that veg out place, as you were saying, in that, liminal space there between awake and asleep. There's that, and that's the place to lie quiet or to go into a different zone. And that's where dreams will come forward and present themselves. But if we wake up and immediately go to a device or immediately go into the plans for the day, we all do that, right? What are we needing to prepare for? What are the expectations of the day? What's waiting for us? What's on the list? As soon as we go to the rational mind, the dream time dissipates and leaves us. And then we miss out on the incredible intelligence and guidance and often and really important support or warnings that are available in that quality of life.
Doing this show for the past 30 some odd years, I've talked to a lot of people who firmly believe that a member of their family who passes away comes to them in a dream and says farewell.
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely, yes. The say, and everybody frames it differently. It can become mythopoetic. It can be framed that way. It can be framed all kinds of ways. But yes, a person dies, but their soul body, or their whatever we're going to choose to, how we're going to characterize that, their presence is still, in journey, and they will present themselves in the way of the dream. And of course, some cultures, the Day of the Dead, they'll have times set and rituals created. And now there's, movies and cartoons and books written about the importance of really hosting the presence of those that are transitioning. I mean, it's said in the field of archetypal psychology, James Hillman and others going back through the lineage, will talk about the importance of putting something out and listening, being a good host, because without our presence, without our hosting the journey of the person that's died, particularly if they're close to us, that person doesn't have the full opportunity to sustain their journey. And the key there is, as they sustain their journey, they evolve. They don't stop. Even people that have been really hard in life, and I'm talking really tough, that we've grown up with, and they hurt us in a number of ways. At the time of passing, though, I mean, I'm not romanticizing because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that, but at the time of passing, if we can host, their journey continues, and they do develop, they do evolve. And as they evolve, really helps us personally in our evolution.
Steve, stand by. I've got to take another break here. And okay. Exo Nation, our guest this hour is Dr. Steve Aizenstat, and he's got two books. Number one is The Imagination Matrix, How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose, and also Dream Tending. And you can get those both at Amazon. And the good doctor and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue talking about dreaming right here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. So whatever you do, don't go away. And also, if you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. And our main website where you can listen to all of the X Zone shows and all the shows produced here at the X Zone Broadcast Network. Just go to www.xzbn.net. Welcome back. We're talking about dreams this hour here in the X Zone, and our guest is the author of two books, The Imagination Matrix, and also Dream Tending. And Steve, what is dream tending?
Dream tending is a different approach. It's an approach that really has evolved through my life, through the many now decades that I've been working with dreams, teaching others how to work with dream, and it's about the word tending, really. Instead of analyzing and interpreting only, we tend to a dream. We listen to the dream as if it were a living presence. Right? We don't so quickly go to an interpretive perspective or orientation. and we don't necessarily analyze. We don't go to the dream dictionary. We don't go to AI. We don't, we really listen to dream as if it had a life of its own, an autonomy, so to speak. And I'll give you a particular way of doing that for those that are curious. And this is a great beginning place. First is opening curiosity, always to open curiosity, no matter how we journey. To journey is to keep curiosity alive. But think of what happens when we approach a dream. I'd say 9.5 out of 10 people that I work with, the first thing we want to know is, what does this dream mean? What does it mean? And in dream tending, we shift that question. Listen now, it's a paradigm shift. Who's visiting now? From what does this mean, which is, of course, natural. That's how we've been trained. What does this mean? Rational mind, deductive reasoning, interpretation, analysis. Is that useful? Of course it is. It is useful. In addition, though, who's visiting now? In other words, there are figures that are here now, and landscapes and creatures. Who's visiting now? Notice how that awakens curiosity from the get-go and brings those people and those creatures, those landscapes, into the room along with us. The story is present. The next question, why is this happening? Of course, that's our mind at work. Why is it happening? We're so interested in knowing the answer. In dream tending, in addition to that, we go to what is happening here. Who's visiting now? What is happening here? Notice what's going on. Our curiosity is piqued, and we experience the dreamscape. We're like naturalists, really, naturalists of the psyche, walking about, noticing the detail and what's present. And then the third and last question, what does this dream do for me? Of course, it's me-centered, person-centered. In the dream tending approach, in addition to it being person-oriented, there's something else. And that's this question, what is the dream's desire? The dream's desire. Oh, yeah. The pull of the future, right? Yeah. What is the dream's desire? The calling. And that's where we get the hints of our authenticity, our sense of calling. Also, that's where we hear the others, whether they're of this community, this country, this planet, or otherwise. That's where we'll hear the visitations of the others.
So when we look at dreams that way, the possibilities are endless. Reality goes out the window, so to speak, because you're able to do whatever you want to do in a way that you can't in what we call reality, but in the dreamscape, you can. You hear, see, and use all your senses in a totally different way.
Oh, you're so right. Yeah, in the book Dream Tending, there's a whole section on that, because we're working with dream and we are using our senses. It's taste, touch, sight, and that's how we can deepen the relationship with these embodied images, these figures. Yes.
You know, I dream a lot. I love dreaming. I look forward to going to bed and dreaming. And I can dream within a dream, within a dream, within a dream, a multi-layered dream. And it took me a while to understand whether I was dreaming or not. And then I came across this little trick. If I'm at a place where there's anything, a sign, a menu, a newspaper, if I look at those and I can't distinguish what it's saying, I know I'm having a dream. And then I really go to town.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. And a lot of the solutions to problems that I have during the daytime, they come to me at night. And, you know, like people will say, well, let me sleep on it. It works.
It really does work. Yeah. Let me sleep on that. Isn't that something? I mean, when you think about it, particularly in the approach of dream tending, right? You tend to the dream rather than interpret it, nail it down, analyze. When you're in that place, you're aware that there are a lot of figures in the dream, right? Not just the one that looks like me. And 90% of times people see the person that looks like me in the dream. But if I'm not the main character and the others are, the question is, who is dreaming the dream? If it's not me, who is dreaming the dream? And I think it is. The other figures really are playing a role now. We're in a different quality of consciousness.
Yeah.
And yes, they will offer information about the problems of the day, our life, our health,
Yeah.
our well-being, etc.
It,
Yes.
it seems as if you go onto the holodeck, or you're using the analogy of the Matrix. All what we thought was science fiction years ago is turning
Yeah.
into reality.
Oh, so true.
Yeah. And I think that in years to come, I hope it's in my time, that these discoveries will open up the possibilities to so many and will enhance their lives in a way that they never thought it could be enhanced.
I think so. I do. And sci-fi forever seems to be the predictor of the
Hmm.
future. Yeah, it does. The people that are doing, I mean, the really authentic
Right.
sci-fi, not the manufactured, but it really does offer hints and clues of what is about to unveil. Now, we're faced with a challenge, though, in the world of today, because with artificial intelligence and everything else, things are sped up, and it becomes increasingly difficult to differentiate between the authentic possibility and the
Right.
manufactured. And much of what's in artificial intelligence and all of that,
Hmm.
or screen, is a kind of intelligence that's created by a code. That's usually the programmer's
Sure.
code, and usually designed to commodify or sell a product of some sort. So, without getting into that whole wrap, I think one of the ways that we can really find the true hints,
Hmm.
those that are really pushing us forward, is to look in a dream and notice what's odd,
Yes.
what's peculiar,
Right.
what's out of the ordinary.
Yeah, like when
Not
I
much.
look at the signs and I can't read them, or if I look at the newspaper and I can't read it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
So is it possible that up until this time in our evolution, where we are learning these things, that we were using artificial intelligence by ourselves, because what we were creating was artificial in our dreams, right? And if we're looking at artificial intelligence being the brainchild of the programmer, then if the programmer is the person who developed the artificial intelligence, then that would make God, or the deity that we believe in, to be the programmer of our reality.
Yes, in one of my dream tending training programs,
Hmm.
and I have a new one coming up actually, the very beginning place where you start with, and it's 4 different modules, and it's all on the website. The There was a really extraordinary person who was very, very gifted, and I won't use his name, and I won't even tell the company, but he was highly, highly esteemed, and he was a programmer. And he started to resent how people would literalize, and kind of, oh, I don't know, marginalize the beauty of what it is to write program.
Oh yes,
For
that's it.
him,
Yeah,
it's a creative process.
big time.
In fact, there would not be artificial intelligence or
Yeah.
anything else without the dream. The dream comes first,
Yes, it does.
consideration happens. Yeah,
And I use that all the time when I'm producing a video. I get the
absolutely.
video in my mind, and how I want it shot, where I want the shots done, and then when it's in production, I can see the dream evolving. And then when you bring it into the editing suite, you've got all your ideas, all your shots, and you put them all together, and bango, there's that video that you dreamt of.
Yeah, absolutely. The new technologies, they need us and the dreaming as much as we
Hmm.
need their assistance, their their support. It goes both ways, and it's wonderful to really allow the dreams that are moving through to come forward and have artistic
Yeah.
expression in all these different mediums.
You were talking about 4 quadrants before. Are they the 4 quadrants of the brain? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, there are 4 quadrants, I think, of imagination, uh, and not only of the brain, but for me, when we're in the web of imagination, in the matrix of imagination, when we're in the dream time, right? I always look for 4 different qualities. One is earth. There's just that generative quality of the earth, the rhythms of nature.
Yes.
And in every dream, we can connect that to the setting of the dream, which is usually the most neglected of all elements of a dream. But there is a setting in a dream, and the qualities of the regenerative experience of earth and nature. The second is the sense of story, and these figures that we've just talked about,
Right.
They have stories to tell. So that would be the second quadrant. And when they're present and when we deepen a relationship, when we befriend them, when we get to know them really, really well, as they get to know us, there's a conversation that happens. And then incredible things evolve. The third is just what we talked about, machine. It's the body as a machine, its functionality, its fluidity, the new technologies are machines, and not to leave that out or to marginalize, to appreciate there is value in the mobility and the facilitation that the machine offers. And the fourth is the universe or the cosmos, that there's something of the mystery there, something of the wonder and magic that overarching context offers to us. Now, when those 4 quadrants intersect with one another, and they do in the dream time, and they do in imagination, the points of intersection are those places where one meets the other. Portals open.
Stand by, Steve. We've got to take our final break, and let's get back to those portals because this is very interesting.
Okay, we'll do that. Good.
Exonation, our guest is Steve Aizenstat, and if you'd like to find out more about him, visit his website, dreamtending.com. That's dreamtending.com, and we'll be back as we wrap up the first hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us around the world on classic1220.ca. That's it. Our good friends at classic1220.ca at Classic 1220 CFAJ in St. Catharines. So whatever you do, don't go away.
Just close my eyes again. Climbed aboard the Dreamweaver train. Trying to take away my worries of today and leave tomorrow behind.
That's Dreamweaver by Gary Wright. Well, we have the original Dreamweaver with us tonight, Dr. Steve Aizenstat. And if you'd like to get more information about the good doctor and all that he does, he's got a great website, Exonation. Be prepared to spend some time there at dreamtending.com. And first of all, Steve, I want to thank you so much for joining us and for sharing with us and giving a lot of people a brand new perspective on dreaming. And I'm sure that if they go to your website, they could get a lot more information. But you were telling me during the last commercial break that you are going to have something very special for people on Tuesday.
That's true. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be offering a free, of course, open house for people that are curious and want to learn more about Dream. And you can get all the information from the website, and you tune in, and I'll be there, and you can ask questions. I'll work with Dream and Dream Image, so you have a real felt sense of what it's like. And yeah, I would love to invite people that are listening now to join us for this.
We were talking about portals before we went to the last break, and I was wondering if we could pick it up where we left off.
We can, and let's also appreciate the song Dreamweaver, right? because it's going to be through these portals that who are we going to meet, you know? Yeah, we know that we're journeying now through the portal.
Right.
We're exploring consciousness. We're exploring the, you know, what is Joseph Campbell says again and again, you know, the outer reaches of inner space and the inner reaches of outer space,
Yeah.
right? We're there. And what a gift it is to meet the dream weaver and the many dream weavers. We discover that when we're journeying in the dream time, in the imagination matrix, in the tapestry, in the patterning, in the weavings that are happening there, we discover that we can't do it on our own. I mean, we think we can because that's our training, but actually we are journeying with a group of companions in the imagination matrix. I call them the soul companions. These are figures that are important to us. They're people that we've known, mentors, teachers, members of our family, right? Going back generations sometimes. Mm-hmm. And they're also the ones that are scary, you know, the nightmarish, the horrific. It's hard to journey with those figures unless we learn the ways of transmuting, unless we learn the ways of discovering how that in the awake world, they can be very frightening, and they are. They really, truly are. And there are ways to deepen a relationship with a number of them, not all, but a number of them. And they then become incredible allies as we're journeying in the tapestry of the imagination. And it's an art, it's a craft. It's like any journey, you know, there's preparation that's required. There's meeting the figures that are important to us to journey along with.
Right.
And the one point that I want to make is it's not, when I do this each morning, I'm not the one journeying alone. That's just an ego, person-centered place. I'm one of the many. I'm part of the we that is taking the journey. And they're the ones that will greet and meet the others that are available in this vast realm of psyche and this quality of consciousness that we're describing. So portal, yes, it all starts in discovering the place of the portal, the entrance, the way in. And we all know the story.
So in reality, you are a dream weaver who gives people who want to learn about dream tending the GPS to their dreams.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of framing that. Yeah, I do really, I get joy in sharing what I've gathered through the years, you know, from great mentors and teachers and through people that are, you know, from all parts of the world. It's been a privilege for me to be in service of that and to really offer that back.
Is there a connection between a near-death experience and dreams? Could we say that a near-death experience is the final dream that we have in this so-called reality, that we tend to go to the light, which could be the ultimate dream that we all have?
You know, if you, as we follow what I'm sharing, my direct experience, because I do a lot of work with hospice, you know, people that are dying. And I talked about working with physical affliction and dream. And of course, people come right up into mortality more often than not. In the world of today, in the collective dream, war and death is bigger and bolder than a lot of other times in history. It goes in cycles, of course. So death is a presence, right? And the way I approach that is we want to get to know death as a figure, you know. Who's visiting now? Death visiting now. Of course, at first it's scary and frightening. Of course, it's a biological imperative to try to stay alive, right? But when we're with our support companions, and then we have the opportunity to get to know death, death becomes an incredible ally. I mean, just think of Darth Vader in Star Wars. We all know that one, right? And at first he's the most horrific of all. And but with Yoda support, right? With Obi-Wan support, then we get to know this one. And we have to have that conversation. That's not always easy, as it was for Luke. It wasn't easy. And all cultures have this story, one story like this or another. But getting to know this one can be a tremendous ally, and then we are continuing a journey into life's other side. And I think that's what you're mentioning, that there is a different illuminated quality on the other side. I call it an illuminated consciousness when we're journeying with our companions, and particularly with this one.
When people talk about death, and they know that I talk to a lot of people who have had the body experience, who've had the near-death experience, they know that I've talked to people who believe that there is much more to this life than we will ever know at this time. They say, well, how do you explain death, Rob? Well, it's very simple. Just take the little caterpillar, okay? He's us right now. And as he gets ready to go to the other side, shall we say, he builds a little cocoon. Let's call that his coffin. And a beautiful metamorphosis takes place within that coffin. And when he comes out, he's a beautiful butterfly. And I believe that this is what happens to us. That when we leave this meat suit, on the other side, when we come out, there is a whole new wonderful experience waiting for us. And I really do believe, Steve, that the dreams that we have today are giving us glimpses into what lies ahead of us.
Oh, yes. That's that last question. What is the dream's desire?
Yeah.
The pull? Where are the hints, the call of the future, forever inviting us in and inviting who we truly are? You know, it's different than the programmed person.
Right.
Yes, I do believe that there is a process of incubation that happens in the dream time that allows us to evolve into the next quality of experience and consciousness. Yeah. That's a beautiful metaphor that you're using.
We've got about 4 minutes left. I'm sorry, three, Craig? Okay. What would you like to share with the X-Zone Nation tonight that to you, I'm going to call you the Dreamweaver from now on, Steve, whether you like it or not.
Okay.
That you, the Dreamweaver, would like to share with the listening audience?
Okay. I do have something that just came forward. I was in, where was I? Portland, Oregon, and they were celebrating the 50th anniversary of their particular community. They asked me to be a keynote speaker, and it was right after the election that happened in the United States. And there were, obviously mixed feelings and bewilderment and all kinds of things, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on. But there was a lot of shock and everything that I was going to say and all those notes and the whole thing, I just put them by the side. That wasn't what was asked for. Something else was being asked. And I spent the evening, and then I was also to offer a day-long workshop working with dream and imagination. And here's what I'd like to share with you. It's my direct experience. If there was a time for us to be in community, an inner community as well as outer community, now is the time. I mean, again, the world is in a place of movement and flux and transition. And for each of us personally, perhaps the communities that we were familiar with are starting to fade. Perhaps another paradigm is presenting itself, for good, bad, or otherwise. What's important now, though, is for each of us, I think, to really first live in the dream time, assemble the figures, the companions, notice who's visiting now, bring our attention to a kind of praxis, whether it be a morning praxis or whatever it is. We each have our own way of doing this. Going in your place, Rob, into the dark, that place, just assembling, taking the time to do that. It takes courage, it does. But to be there, the rewards are wonderful and it's self-perpetuating. Then find communities of praxis that are external, so that we bring what's going on inside to people on the outside that are somewhat like-minded, sympathetic. And let's take the time and pause here and do this before going into the streets or before being reactive or rebellious. Let's go inside first and listen to what you were sharing, that call of the future.
I want to thank you ever so much for coming on the show, and I truly look forward to the next time that you join us here, Steve. You've got the open house this coming Tuesday, and they can find all the information about that on your website, and it's dreamtending.com, right?
Dreamtending.com, yeah, and you can find all kinds of information there and everything I talked about, and also an invitation to the open house, yes.
Steve, take care of yourself. Thank you for your time, and don't be a stranger. And as I said, from now on, you are the Dreamweaver.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Have a nice evening, my friend. Take care of yourself, and thanks for coming again. Exonation, once again, if you'd like to get more information about our guest this hour, visit his website, dreamtending.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we commence hour number 2 of tonight's show, The X Zone, because we're a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and our very good friends at your hometown radio, Classic 1220, who stream us on classic1220.ca. Don't go away, we'll be back.
I've just closed my eyes again, climbed aboard the dream. We've a train, trying to take away my worries.